What? Whoa.
Hello and welcome to Cattle Chats. We're so excited you're here. My name is Freddie Sweeney and I am the communications manager with the Livestock Conservancy. And I am so excited to talk about Texas Longhorns today with some very special guests. We have Debbie Davis and Debbie Adams with the Cattlemen's Texas Longhorn Registry. And they are so excited to talk about cattle to you. This is awesome. And we also have Charlene Couch. She's one of our senior programs managers here to talk cattle too. I mean, we love cows. So it's hard not to.
We do. And these are really special cattle. Just by way of introduction, I want to ham up a little on these guys. Debbie Davis lives on, I think, an 1,800-acre ranch down in Tarpley, Texas. It is a massive and beautiful place, and I visited there. She runs DWD Longhorns, and are you still the treasurer of the Cattlemen Texas Longhorn Registry?
I am. I wear a bunch of hats. I'm the treasurer. I'm a past president. I do all the registrations. So I'm pretty involved.
Yeah. And Debbie Adams, you have Cielito Lindo Ranch, is that right?
Have we lost her?
Yeah, we can't hear you, Debbie. I'm sorry.
Oh no.
Well, join us when you can. Debbie Davis, would you like to introduce the registry and then
Yes.
And then we'll talk about the cattle specifically?
Sure. The Cattlemen's Texas Longhorn Registry was founded in 1990 by a group of breeders that had been in the Longhorn industry since they were children, most of them. They had a really good eye for the traditional type cattle, and they felt it was necessary to form this organization to preserve the few remaining pure animals, because they saw the majority of the horn cattle changing due to single trait selection. So we've been around for a while now.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When I drive around here, I see what people call Texas Longhorns, and they don't seem to me to be endangered because they're everywhere. Tell me why these Longhorns are different.
Correct. Well, the original kind that DNA test Iberian, which is the area from which the cattle came in the 15 and 1600s, those are endangered. We have counted approximately 3,000 living animals. There are tens of thousands of horn cattle that possess part DNA that is Iberian and part other like African or continental breeds DNA. So they're a composite breed. A lot of them have super big wide horns. They're very pretty to look at. They're very popular, but they are not the pure animal that evolved in this country for 300 years.
Wow. Wow. Debbie Adams, are you back with us?
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
No.
great. Well, I think that Debbie is the secretary of the registry. Debbie, you had some photos. Did you wanna give us an idea of what the Longhorns I see all the time and what the real Texas Longhorn looks like?
As I like to refer to them, the OG, the original gangsters. Yes. Yeah,
Let's
sure.
take a look at a comparison there.
All right, I've got this one queued up.
Yes, this is a steer. This is my boy Becca's. So the thing with steers is they can no longer reproduce. So the energy that would have gone into reproduction now goes into height and horns. And so if you look at a pasture and you're looking at a herd, the tallest animal in that herd is going to be the steer. And instead of his horns going out and up like a bull does, his horns start to get the twist like the females do. These are the horns that they used to put on the Cadillacs way back in the day.
Wow.
Great. All right.
Yeah, he's a good boy.
This one?
And yeah, and so this is the bull. See, the horns are different. They go out and then they go up. This is Ricardo. He's new, but he's a handsome boy and he's getting along very well with everybody.
He's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one more here.
And then here's, yeah, I kept trying to get this one particular cow, and she just did everything she could to not stand pretty for me. But you can kind of see the different kinds of horns that are there in the pasture. This one up close in the front has the triple twist. And then the brown one behind her horns go out and do more of a lyre shape. And I think that's Becca's, the big butt there, the white one. But beyond him is applesauce, and she has yet like a handlebar kind of horn. So the females, the cows, they're not gonna be exactly the same, but there is going to be a twist, some kind of twist. They may be flatter, they may go up, but so you can look. This is how you win at Trivial Pursuit. You know, the tallest one, you go out, there's the steer, the bull out and up, and then all the rest of them, you know what they are.
That's great.
All right.
And we've also got some of what you call the Longhorns.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there. Oops. Yeah. You see the diff? The horn is thicker, and it just goes kind of flat out, because what they're aiming for with that is they want long. And that's not the animal that was brought over in the 1500s.
No, that is a bull, and he likely has some kind of African introgression, either Watusi or Afrikaner. I can't tell you what, but they have those wide, flat kind of horns.
Wow.
Absolutely. I think you have one more.
Mm-hmm.
A similar type.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you look at him and you see the hide, and I think that's what catches people's eyes first is, ooh, that's a longhorn hide. But you got to look at the horns and the shape of the head, and those kinds of things.
And I can see why that kind of animal is very popular, particularly for people that, it's a contest. It's a pride of ownership. My bull has 80 something tip to tip, and
Yeah.
But,
Cue the chest beating.
yeah, well, our focus is on the conservation of the original type. And the reason we do that is because it is vitally important that we maintain genetic diversity in all of our heritage breeds of animals, because each one plays a role in contributing to the health of the overall national herd, if you want to call it that. If we go and combine genetics from all the different breeds to become some kind of monoculture, you're going to set yourself up for diseases, calving difficulty. One disease could come in and wipe out the entire beef supply if we don't have all the good traits that are possessed by the heritage breeds. And we need to keep those separate so you get the most hybrid vigor when you cross them.
Right. Very true. Very true. Well, you sort of led us directly into what, tell us, both of you, tell us what makes these cattle really stand out in terms of their traits.
You want to go, Debbie?
Okay. Yeah. No, they do. I mean, there's a reason why they were driven up the trails. I mean, these are tough animals. They're hardy. I mean, I think only a Texas Longhorn could start out at one weight, be driven 1,500 miles, and have gained weight by the time they got to Chicago or wherever they're going. Yeah, and I think Will was telling a story the other day about somebody that had Longhorns, and then he brought other cows in, and they catch up with the guy later, and hey, how are your other cows? Oh, they're all dead. Why? The Longhorns walked them to death. They could not keep up with them. They're tough, and they're fertile. The ease of calving is incredible. I had a neighbor ask me, hey, who does the preg checks for you? Who did it? I'm like, Mother Nature. We don't do anything. They go off into their little clump of trees or whatever. They have their calf, and in 30 minutes or so, here comes the calf. Just either walking or running. I mean, it's good gravy. They just showed up, and there they are zipping around. They're disease resistant. I mean, Debbie, what else do you want to toss in up there?
High fertility, early fertility, longevity. Some of these, it's typical for a cow to reproduce, have a calf every year until she's at least 16. Other breeds don't last that long. I've had cattle live to 21, 22 years old, but when they get that old, they probably aren't calving every 10 to 12 months as they do when they're younger. But that's another thing, 10 to 12 months, not 15 months. Texas Longhorns, they breed back and raise a healthy calf at maximum every 12 months.
Wow.
Yeah, the
That's
old timers
amazing.
used to say 9 months and 15 minutes.
9 months and 15 minutes.
Yeah,
I like that.
Serious.
Well, those sound like amazing traits. Why do you think the original form, the original Texas Longhorn, why do you think it became so rare then and so endangered?
Well, they, one, didn't fit well into rail cars. They don't particularly fit well into feedlots unless you cut their horns off.
Yeah.
And they're a very lean animal. And in the 1800s and 1900s, beef with a lot of fat became very popular. They wanted high marbling, high fat cover. Also, in the early days, the tallow served for making soap, candles, all sorts of other supplies that we needed on a day-to-day basis. So the Longhorns fell out of favor in favor of the fatter European stock that provided them with a lot of fat.
And Mother Nature played a part in it as well. There was a series of devastating droughts and freezes, but number one was the invention of barbed wire, because now these cows couldn't move around like they used to move around. And, there was the barbed wire wars, and they're fencing off water, and just oodles of them would perish.
Wow. Yeah, I read that they once numbered in the millions because they were left here by the Spanish, and they just ranged around and did their own thing for hundreds of years.
That's correct.
Kind of like Texans.
That's right. Tough as nails. That's great. Let's see. I had a couple other questions for you. I have heard tales of that these cattle are fertile even in horrible droughts. Nothing else is making babies, and who is still calving?
That is correct. Lawrence Wallace, he's now passed away. He was one of our founding members, told a story of his uncle, Graves Peeler. In the drought of the 50s, he had to sell off all of his commercial stock because they weren't earning their keep. And he said after a year with the Longhorns, all they gave him was salt and mineral. They had a calf crop. He was able to pay all of his debts, and the animals were still alive. So that speaks volumes to their resistance.
Sure does. Sure does. Wow. Yeah, these are tough guys and gals. So I know that Texas Longhorns are definitely in Texas. Can they live elsewhere?
Of course. Debbie, you want to take that one?
No, you can.
They're not only resistant to heat, they're also pretty cold tolerant. There's cattle all the way up into Canada, but a big herd that I know of that I really have a lot of respect for is at Fort Robinson State Park in Nebraska. It gets plenty cold in Nebraska, and those cattle do beautifully up there. They're bigger than they grow down here in Texas because these animals, they're highly adaptable and they will grow to their country. The forage in Nebraska is richer and more plentiful than what we have here in the arid Southwest. So the animals, the cows may be 100 to 200 pounds heavier than the ones are here, and their calves are bigger as well. An experiment, you take one from up there and bring it down here, its babies will grow to the size of the ones down here because of the adaptation to the environment.
Wow. Yeah.
Kinda
So
like
I could have
goldfish in a tank.
these cattle anywhere in North America, really.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, they're known
Debbie
for
Adams,
their
were you going to
use of
say something?
forage. Yeah, I was just
Sorry?
going to add that they're known for their use of forage. I mean, they can just eat and process, and you don't have to feed them special things. You know, they just do their thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll eat brush and trees as well as grass. They just browse like a deer.
Wow. Cactuses?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
All
That's
right.
why they have the longer faces, so they can get in and get the good stuff out of the center of the cactus.
Okay. Well, those horns, if folks are interested in having them on their farm, do they use their horns in aggressive ways, or how do you manage them?
Oh, they manage their own horns. No. So
Good point.
They are not aggressive. They're intelligent animals, and they're really just a pleasure to be around. That said, if there's a fly and they need to throw that horn to scratch that fly, you need to be aware of that and not be in the direct path. And I've had one, got her feeding her cookies, and they got a little spoiled. And I mean range cubes or horse cookies. I'm not getting chocolate chip out of the pantry, but giving her a little treat. And this one time I wasn't doing fast enough, so she kind of gave me a little shove. But I'm like, I will respect the horse.
Right.
But they're not going to chase you and come after you. They don't do that.
Okay.
Something that amazes me is they know exactly where the tip of that horn is. So if there's a fly on their tail head, the cows and steers with the horns long enough can turn and get that one little tiny spot and scratch. But they will also turn their heads to go through a narrow area, like a cattle chute or a trailer door. They'll just turn, go through. They know exactly how to do it.
Wow. That's really cool. So these cows were here for a long time after the Spanish came. How were they rediscovered, do you think?
Deb, you want that one? I think she faded away.
Right now.
They were running wild in the brush country of Texas and Mexico, somewhat to the southwest Mexico areas. And you say rediscovered, they weren't lost. They were just wild brush cattle. And after the Civil War, Texans came home to nothing. It's like, well, what do we have to make a living? And the cowboys said, let's go gather up these cattle because there's no beef in this country. And that's what started the trail drives. They drove these animals north to the markets. And the Texas economy recovered from that.
Wow. That's amazing. So in the registry, I know that y'all do a lot of work to keep this breed going. Can you talk about some of the ways that you conserve the genetic diversity of these cattle?
Well, the biggest thing is keeping records. I know it's tedious, but that's my deal. I keep it all in a database. So when the members need to know, they can call me up or send me an email, and I can look it up and go back 6 or 7 generations, depending on how far back the records go for that particular individual. But the important thing is to be able to calculate that inbreeding coefficient. If you can do sample breedings, like this cow with this bull, and are you going to get good hybrid vigor actually isn't the right word when you're breeding two of the animals of the same breed, but are you going to get a good cross that's good and healthy, or are you getting a closely related pair on either side? So records are real important. We don't have a huge gene pool, so we have to maintain as much diversity as we possibly can. So we use DNA, we use parentage testing, every possible avenue of preserving these animals.
Okay. Wonderful. Yeah, y'all do an impressive job, I think, of your registration and of keeping the purity of the breed there, with your DNA testing and pedigree tracking.
And what we have learned is the most important thing is the visual inspection. I'm not a young folk anymore, but when I started out 20 years ago, the older guys taught me what to look for, characteristics that are pure Longhorn traits. And what we have learned through our genetic testing is that our visual inspection is about 99% spot on, which is pretty good.
Wow. Wow. So then do you require inspection for registration?
We do for all bulls, because that bull can influence your entire herd. So you want to make sure that if you think he's from this sire, he really is from that sire. We do a visual inspection and a DNA test. Now, for female offspring of 2 registered parents, we just consider them as subsequent and just register like any other association. What differentiates the Cattlemen's Texas Longhorn Registry from other associations is we are not a closed registry. We will consider animals that come from unregistered stock because we have this double inspection process, visual and DNA. So if that animal passes both of those criteria, then we'll go ahead and register it, even though we don't know who the sire and dam are. And that also helps to bring in more genetics, or at least since we don't know, we don't know if it could possibly be related to others. But we've done that with cattle that were brought up out of Mexico. So it has helped to expand our gene pool.
Right. Yeah, that's always the hang up with endangered breeds, is that the population is really so small. And when we slam the door on outside blood, especially in these land race breeds that are, they adapted to all these different environments, and they were not managed by people quite as much, or maybe they were managed only in certain locations. If you close the door on those genetics, then what are you left with, I guess, is what I'm getting at. Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. I wanted to ask you sort of the obvious question that I'm sure everybody is thinking is, how's the beef?
Where's the
Tasty.
beef?
Where's the beef? Yeah.
The beef has an amazing flavor. Of course, I'm biased. I raise Longhorns, and I've been eating it for a long time. But the flavor is like what your grandparents remember beef tasting like before feedlots started making everything generic by feeding everything grains. It just sort of watered down the flavor of meat. a Longhorn, particularly a Longhorn that is grass-fed off the pasture, it's got this really robust flavor that it's like an intense beef. The way that I have explained it is if you're cooking down a sauce to a concentrated gel, that's sort of like the beef flavor. It's real beefy. And we've done taste comparisons with other breeds, and the others are just a little more watered down.
Okay.
I know for me, my favorite cut is a ribeye because I like that fat. But sometimes, but you buy these at the grocery store, and they got a lot of fat on them. But a Longhorn, you still get the flavor, and just enough of that fat. Not because some of the stuff that you buy at the grocery store is just overloaded, and as much as I like it, that's just too much. But it's practically perfect with the Longhorn.
Sounds so good.
It does sound good.
Yeah.
Wow. So Debbie Adams, do you sell beef yourself?
I do not. I haven't started that yet. I'm actually going to process my first steer in mid-August. I sold cows to other people or take them to the market, but I haven't done that selling it just yet.
Okay. And Debbie Davis, I think you have a pretty robust beef sales, right?
I do, or I have. We started selling beef in 2003. We started out killing about 300 head per year, and that was really more than I could handle. Because I don't have enough land to feed that many cattle, so I was having to buy cattle from other producers and try and control their finishing. And what I learned is it was just too much work for what I wanted in my life. It didn't fit with my lifestyle goals. So I scaled back to now I only market the cattle that I raise and finish here on my home ranch. And that's 25 to 30 steers per year. It takes about 2.5 years for a Longhorn steer to reach 1,000 to 1,100 pounds when all you're feeding them is grass. So I have to maintain my stocking rate where I've got enough grass for my breeding herd and then also enough grass for these steers that I'm keeping for 2 years. But yeah, I have done that. I started out selling when we were killing a lot more. We sold to restaurants, grocery stores, individuals, and also I had a farmer's market booth that I did for about 3 years every weekend. And when I scaled back, there was one restaurant that I continued to sell ground beef to for a while. But now I just do cow shares, bulk orders to individual end users, and my life is much easier.
I bet. I bet. Yeah. Was it difficult to develop a market for the beef there?
It was at first because of all of the preconceived ideas that we had to overcome, like, oh, it might be tough and stringy, or it might be dry, or whatever. My husband never thought he'd be doing this, but he found himself just walking in the back door of a restaurant and plopping down some meat in front of the chef and say, try this. And that's how we got in the door, because nobody had ever tried it. And as soon as they tasted it, it's like, oh, I can sell this.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Debbie Davis, you prepared a hamburger for me once upon a time, and it was astonishingly good. It was a hamburger. Well, Debbie Adams, you are the secretary, right, of the association?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you get those phone calls saying, I'd like to get some real Texas Longhorns, where do you send folks, and what do they need to know?
Well, I send them actually back to Debbie.
I see how this works.
Well, what happens, I get a lot of the emails and a lot of the phone calls because I've been involved with the association for so long. And what I do, I try and be very fair. So when we get a request for cattle, I blast out an email to the entire membership, what has been requested. And that way everybody has equal opportunity to respond to that person with photos and records, what have you, of what they have available. And I just think that's the way that an association should work. We support each other and help each other in our marketing efforts.
That's terrific. Yeah, because you could sell a lot of cattle if the calls only came to you, right?
That's right.
All right. So what would a newbie like me need to have in place? How many acres? What kind of fencing? What do you think, Adams or Davis?
Debbie Adams, you want to take that one?
Well, I cut out, so I don't know what the question was.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry.
I know.
She's having technical difficulties. Anyway, I'll answer that one. Of course, how many acres, that depends on where you live. The further west you go, the more acres you need per head to supply enough forage. So I can't give you an average. I know in the eastern part of the country, they can graze an animal per acre or even 2 animals per acre. That's unheard of where I am. It's more like 1 head to 30 acres. Out west, it's 1 head to 150 acres. So we can't really answer that. What you really need to do is get with your Natural Resource Conservation Service representative in your county or your ag extension agent, one of those guys. They'll work with you. They went to school, they know your area, and they can help you. But as far as fences, I prefer a 5-foot high, 5-wire barbed wire fence. That's me.
Okay.
There are people that get by with 4-foot fences. There are people that use net wire or other sources, whatever works for you. But these animals are tall and athletic. So one caution is if you have some pretty little Angus heifers next door and they come in heat, your bull with a 4-foot fence is going to go service all of your neighbor's heifers. So you need fences.
It's kind of crazy. You look at how big these animals are, and they can jump a fence from a standing position. They don't run at it and then make the leap. We had Lonnie's bull here for a little bit, Norman, and Norman was just said he was getting into the one pasture I did not want him in. And I sat there and I watched him just lean, and I mean, what is that? 1,200, 1,500 pounds of bull just goes right over the fence. It's impressive.
Yeah.
Like Debbie said, yeah, because they can run. I mean, they just have endurance, and I would not have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself.
Wow. Yeah, but a 5-foot fence, that is probably it. It sounds like a prerequisite. Yeah,
I mean,
that'll do it.
If there were a cow directly next door enticing the bull, he would probably go there over a 5-foot fence. But in general, that's a good rule of thumb for maintaining a herd.
Okay. Well, very cool. Brittany, do we have questions for these guys yet?
We do. People are excited about some Texas Longhorns. Let's see. Hi, Scott. Thanks for joining us today. Scott says, what a beautiful animal. So I think we agree. You showed us some pretty lovely.
We think so.
Might be biased, but we also love them.
That's right.
Let's see. Heirloom Heritage Fibers, thanks for joining us today. We're glad you're here. They said the Longhorns are the parallel breed to the Gulf Coast sheep. They all came over to North America on the same boats.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is.
I did not think about them all coming over together.
Right.
Thanks for sharing that. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for joining us today. We're glad you're here. Kathy says she'd like to hear Debbie Davis talk about the process the CTLR used to get the genome mapping with UC Davis, and also about the CTLC, the conservation arm, the Conservancy arm. That's what.
Yes. Okay. Well, we are working with UC Davis. We did not come up with that analysis. Cecilia Pinedo did. She's a brilliant geneticist, and she is using mitochondrial DNA test, and she has mapped. Oh, there's Debbie live.
Welcome back, Debbie.
Sorry.
Cecilia Pinedo is using mitochondrial DNA, and she can determine percentage of other breeds. I think there's 17 different breeds that she has mapped. And she's good enough to say this animal is 3% Angus and 15% Hereford. And it's really exact. We also use a DNA analysis that was developed for our registry by Emily J. McTavish, who was a PhD candidate studying under David Hillis back in 2010 from the University of Texas. And then April Wright, another PhD candidate, tweaked that program to where it's a little more advanced now. But what it does is it calculates indocene percentage.
What does that mean?
You consider that all cattle started from the aurochs in the Middle East eons ago, they migrated. Some went across Egypt down around the southern tip of Africa. Others went across Europe, and they converged and they also went across the northern tip of Africa. But those that went across the northern tip of Africa converged with those that were in France and Spain through trade between Morocco and Spain. And that's what made the Iberian cattle, and that's your first hybrid vigor, the crossing of the more Indocene cattle from Africa with the Taurine cattle from Europe. And the Longhorn evolved from what they brought over from there in this country.
Okay.
That was a long story. What was the rest of that question? It had to do with the Conservancy. The Conservancy is a 501c3 public charity that is a sister organization to our registry, which is a nonprofit trade organization. The registry acts to promote breeders and the breed. The Conservancy acts to advance research and education, and works with these geneticists to come up with more robust analyses. And right now we're working with a gentleman named Juan Stiebel, who is going to work with the SNP technology that we're using now and come up with an analysis that can give us percentages of taurine breeds as well as Indian breeds. So we're real excited about that.
Wow. Wow. That is very exciting, actually.
Absolutely.
But I'm a geek.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah.
Let's see. Heirloom Heritage Fibers would like to know, are Longhorns okay in a wet climate like eastern Oklahoma?
One word, yes.
Debbie Adams, you want to answer that one?
Oh, yes, absolutely. These are Texas tough animals. Yes, they'll do well.
So anywhere, pretty much.
And if you consider the Longhorn cattle as they go across the country, what is Florida Cracker and what is Piney Woods, they all started from the same Iberian stock. Each individual breed evolved in their environment. So yes, you could take a Longhorn east and it's going to do fine. Because it's going to become a piney woods cow. It's going to adapt to that environment and do just fine. Or in Oklahoma, where you get a little more rain, it's going to do great. Longhorns do great in Oklahoma. Just look at the wildlife refuge in Cache.
That's a great point. Thank you for that question. Hi, Jean. Thanks for joining us. Jean says there's plenty of Longhorns in Florida. Excellent. And I think that's all of our questions. So if anybody has any more questions, feel free to write them in. We'd be happy to answer a couple more.
Well, I'd like to give a little plug for an upcoming event.
Absolutely. Yes, please do.
You beat me to it.
I'll talk about the Capitol. You talk about the party.
Yeah. I wasn't going to give up till we said something about this.
On June 24th, Thursday, at the state capitol of Texas on the South Steps, there is going to be a proclamation reading at 3:00. Senator Donna Campbell will be present with representatives from the Cattlemen's Texas Longhorn Registry. There will be a Longhorn steer there for photo ops. And what this is about is in 1995, the school children chose the Texas Longhorn as the state large mammal. Last year was the 25th anniversary of that proclamation. And Senator Campbell is recognizing the Cattlemen's Texas Longhorn Registry for its efforts in conservation, as well as recognizing the Longhorn as the state mammal. And the big news is 2021 is the 500th anniversary of cattle coming to the Americas. Yeah, so this is a really big celebration for us because this is Texas' first beef animal that evolved here. All right, Deb, you go.
Okay. And then upcoming on the 26th, so 2 days later, we're hosting a Texas Longhorn Hero dining experience. So what we're doing is we're setting up tables out in the pasture. We're selling tickets, and you can go to the CTLC.org website, directly get your ticket there if you're in the hood and want to stop by. And it'll be here at the Cielito Lindo Ranch. We'll have the long pasture that's closest to the house, so folks can get out there, see them up front and close, and if they feel like they will feed them a treat, they'll have that opportunity as well. Photo op with the folks and the Longhorns, and I think Debbie are getting a riding steer for that event as well.
Well, a haltered steer. I don't think we're going to put people on him, but yes.
Okay,
yes.
Okay, just a haltered steer. So I mean, it's like you can be that close to the animal. We have a professional chef that has worked with Debbie and I on the menu, and it will be Longhorn. So appetizers, there's 2 different ones that'll be served with Longhorn beef and the entree. And what I particularly liked about that is what we tried to do was come up with something that you didn't drown the meat in the sauce, because we want the public to taste it. I mean, you can't go to the grocery store really and pick these up. So we want to introduce that. It's also, let's see what else. Oh, we have a silent auction, and we're going to be previewing the Holstein Dilemma that the Backyard Green Films folks did.
Right.
Did I miss anything?
Silent auction.
Yeah, silent auction. We got some good stuff in the silent auction. I'm excited.
Ooh. That sounds like a ton of fun.
Yes.
Wow.
We're looking
And
forward.
500
Yeah,
years.
Yeah, 500 years, and they're awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's so wonderful.
Yeah.
All right. I'm convinced now I need a Texas Longhorn. Where do I go? Who do I ask? And if I want Longhorn beef, where do I find it?
Okay. If you want the live animal, I recommend going to CTLR.org, and there's a breeders page. You can click on that, and there's a list of lots of folks. If you want meat, that's a little bit tougher. You probably should contact me through the CTLR.org association, and I can put you in touch with people that have portions for sale, because there's a difference. If you're labeled for resale, then you can sell portions, like they could sell you a steak. If you're not selling labeled meat, then you buy cow shares, which are bulk orders. You would buy a side of a cow. And there's different people that sell those than those that sell the portions.
Okay. Yum. Well, thank you. Are there any more questions, Brittany, for these
Let's
folks?
see. I think we had a couple come in.
Okay.
Hi, Joyce. Thanks for joining us today. Joyce
Hi,
says
Joyce.
exciting. She's a Texas gal here and loves our Longhorns. So
Yay!
Wonderful.
Heirloom says, thank you all for the conversation and the genetic information. Looking forward to learning more. So thanks again. And then Matthew, thanks for joining us today. We're glad you're here. Matthew wants to know, are there any efforts to take live skin cell samples from those in the registry to cryogenetically bank that could be used for reproductive purposes?
Interesting. Right now, we're not doing anything like that. We do have a semen bank of mostly heritage or foundation bulls that go back to 1970s, some of them. At this time, we have not done any embryo banking or skin cells or anything like that. There are, I know, some scientists that are making collections in the country, and maybe we should contact them.
Yeah, good idea.
Great question, Matthew. Thank you for that. I think that's it. I'm just going to do a little shameless plugging here. Again, go to the CTLR.org and learn more about Texas Longhorns and talk to these amazing ladies. This has been awesome. And I think y'all also have a Facebook page. So if you're on Facebook, you can look them up at CTLR.org, O-R-G, and connect with them that way. And please go to these events. They sound amazing. I'm like sad I don't live in Texas right now.
We need a road trip, Brittany.
Absolutely. I'm all for it. And then I'll just do a shameless plug for the Livestock Conservancy, because all of our members, thank you so much for making programs like Cattle Chats today possible. We wouldn't be able to talk to these wonderful, amazing ladies about cattle if it wasn't for you. So please look us up on our website, livestockconservancy.org, and become a member if you're interested and want to see more programming like this. Anything else we should say, Charlene, before we wrap up?
Well, I have a ton more questions, but I don't want to keep you ladies forever. Do y'all have anything else you'd wanna make a point of before we go?
Maybe
No,
just
I just say thank you for the opportunity.
I'm sorry, Deb.
Oh, I was just saying,
Repeat one more time for anybody that is interested in attending the dinner event. Go to ctlc.org.
Okay.
Yeah,
CTLC.
that's the Conservancy. Yeah, not the Registry. CTLC.org.
And the dinner experience is actually to benefit the Conservancy. So it is a
Correct.
fundraiser. Yeah.
Wow. Good deal.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much, both of you. And I hope lots of folks will get in contact with you to find cattle or to find beef. And we look forward to celebrating 500 years of cattle in North America.
Yay.
Thank you for the opportunity. This is great.
Thank you.
I hope everyone has a great afternoon. This has been wonderful. Please tune in again next week. We'll be talking about Guernsey cattle and some dairy and cheese products. And have a great one, everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.